Hey, how you guys doing? It's Coach Mitch here. This is for my vets. You guys, I'm also a vet. I've been coaching for 7.5 years for 1811 type jobs. FBI and Secret Service seem to be the mainstay. And I want to talk to you about when going for these interviews for the Phase 2 FBI or Secret Service super interview, the mindset you must have. The first thing I want to talk about is this, the hero stories. I know from our military training, I get that. I was law enforcement, I understand where you're coming from. Many people think, many of my vets think they want to hear some dramatic story where you took over and saved someone or things of that nature. This is for you guys. That is not what they want to hear. I've been doing this for 7.5 years. I prepare you for these interviews. I prepare you for what to say using your own life story. They do not want to hear about the hero type behavior because these stories can show sometimes poor judgment or accidentally doing unnecessary risk taking. 1811 jobs are not about that stuff. Now you may see it on Hollywood movies, right? Where the Secret Service guy is by himself, takes out 15 guys, he walks away, a little scratch on his arm, he's done. You don't want to relay those type of stories to this panel because they are going to be under the impression you're trying to impress them. You're not going to impress these guys. They've seen a lot, they've done a lot. These guys are not going to be impressed by your military history because half of them are military already. And the ones who are not, they've seen enough action on their own anyway. So we're not going to go down that hero story route when you come to me for coaching. It's not going to happen because I want to make sure you pass. The guys who don't pass are the ones who defer to hero type stories and they don't get to pass because they just don't want that. Number two is this, leadership. Leadership is not aggression. Many of you are getting that confused. You're thinking that because you tell a story that shows you being loud or forceful or dominant, it does not. It does not automatically translate into leadership. A strong candidate shows calm control, emotional maturity, and they influence, but they're not the loud person. You got to think about these two guys like in a bar, right? One guy's really loud and threatening people and stuff like that. He's the most scared guy in the group. Other guy's quiet, purposeful, silent, right? He's a guy you really got to worry about, the ones who are quiet. They want you to have that kind of demeanor, the one who's quiet, emotionally controlled, has that maturity. He doesn't need to be forceful or loud because he already knows what his limits are, what he can do. He doesn't have to advertise his strength. Same thing here with this panel. Don't walk in there and think you're going to take over the panel and dazzle them with aggressive type behaviors and think that shows leadership. It does not. I know we come from a military background. I know what they teach us. And so you have to think differently. My true understanding of this is this. You guys have as much as a tough time in this panel here as do a civilian because civilians usually I have to ramp them up a little bit, right? But my military guys, I have to dilute them a little bit. Same for law enforcement too. It can't be every answer some hardcore, aggressive type behavior. It's not going to work with these guys. These 1811 professionals will say, nah, this guy's going to be a problem, And so you're going to show yourself as an issue even before you get past the interview process. They're going to say, nope, come back later on when you're more ready to be more mature. That's what's going to happen to you, all right? Number three is, before you take an action, they're looking at what is your decision making. Decision making matters more than action. I always say, I can always tell an AT when I see one. So what does an AT mean? It's an analytical thinker. When I have a client who's military or law enforcement background, when I ask a question, he thinks first before he answers. He's an AT. He's analyzing, assessing, understanding, and then he's taking action. Panels are not really interested in what happened. They're more interested in how you thought through the situation before you took action, right? So they're looking at what are you thinking about before you take the action you took, because those are going to be counter questions. Why did you do that? What were you assessing before you did that? What was in your mind before that happened? What did you think was the outcome? What was the outcome? You cannot approach that from a pure 100% military law enforcement background. It's not going to help you because they want to hear about decision making before you take any action. That's always the best way. Number four, we are all taught in the military how to be solo or be in a group, right? We're taught that way, right? Remember you're teaching when you're in boot camp. This is what I want to say here. Teamwork beats lone wolf thinking, okay? It always does. Remember the boot camp days? Everything we did was as a unit, right? We were only as fast as the slowest man when it came down to PT and running and stuff like that, right? That's how that works. So 1811s often are involved with coordination, communication, and using available resources. You have to understand that stories that ignore teammate behaviors, stories that ignore how can another guy help me in this process, stories that ignore not coming to your colleague raises flags with this panel. They want you to be teamwork, teammate associated, because you cannot get things done only by yourself as a lone wolf in the 1811 interview. They're going to ask you, the FBI Phase 2, they're going to ask you, Secret Service Super Interview, they're going to ask you, U.S. Marshals, they're going to ask you, ATF, they're going to ask you. They're looking for team-type behavior. Number 5, you might think it's interesting, but restraint often scores better and higher than using force. Sometimes the strongest answer, which I teach them in my course, is that you're slowing down is the strongest answer than going right for force, right? Because it means you gathered information first. You prevented an escalation. And instead of charging forward, you use your brain first. You say, you know what? Is there another way to answer this situation or to take care of the situation before I use force? They don't want you to use force as your first and primary only action. They want you to really think about these things and use deductive reasoning as far as how will you solve the problem here. That's what they want you to do. Coming out of the military, you got to understand that restraint is the first thing they want to hear in the 1811s. If you're going to go through this process and think, oh, it's going to be force and being tough and being lone wolf, you're not going to make it. You just aren't. I know this because a lot of my returns. So what's a return? A return is someone who takes on these 1811 interviews on their own. They fail. They come back and see me for the first time. I ask them 2 questions. I can already tell what happened. I say, okay, this is what happened. Let me guess, you did it by yourself, right? Yeah, what's wrong with that? In the military, it's different. 1811s, you can't do that. So I teach that. I teach it all the time. The last one, guys, it's mission over ego. And so the panel respects candidates who prioritize concerns. They prioritize professionalism, public trust. That's a huge one, right? Public trust, of course, right? And they're not trying to prove they're the toughest person in the room. You know, you can have the biggest arms and the most tattoos and blah, 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 blah. You're not going to impress this panel. You got to get that through your head. They want you to understand the mission comes before the ego. You know, there's a Western a long time ago. I think it was a Clint Eastwood movie with Lee Van Cleef. And Lee Van Cleef, he struck a match on this guy's back. And the guy turned around, he went for his gun, but his partner held him back with that gun. He said, And because they were there for a mission, those 3 guys are there for a mission. If the guy has his back struck with a match would have fired his gun, it blows the whole mission. Therefore, he had to use restraint. His friend helped him to be restrained. Understand? Same thing here. They want you to understand the mission comes before the ego every single time. Look, guys, you do not earn trust in federal interviews by sounding fearless. They're not looking for that. You earn the trust by sounding disciplined. I teach that. I make sure you understand that. Discipline is the way to go, not the ego. We don't want that at all in the interviews, okay? If you want serious help, I can help you get past this part of the interview. Last year, I had 58 super interview candidates, all 58 passed. In January, 12 passed of 12. In February, 9 came to me on 9 passed, right? Last month, I have 15 come to me, 14 passed, right? FBI, same way. FBI last year, 64 came to me, all 64 passed. In February, 9 came to me, 8 passed. So I know what I'm doing here. You guys, my fellow vets out there, I'm also a vet and I get it. But we have to redirect your thinking, because don't go in there with this aggression, I'm a tough guy, blah, blah, blah. It is going to work against you and not for you. You want help with this, go down into my description, click a coaching link, go to my calendar, set yourself up in my calendar, and I will see you to help you get past this, okay? You guys take care, and thank you for serving the country. That's definitely appreciated. If you want to keep on serving, we got to tone down our stuff and get it done the right way the first time. That's the only way. Continue your mission.